Welcome to That Cancer Conversation, the podcast from Cancer Research UK that brings together the science and the stories behind cancer. In this episode, we're changing things up slightly, celebrating the Bowelbabe Fund for Cancer Research UK. The fund was set up by Dame Deborah James, also known as Bowelbabe, and her family in the last few weeks of her life. And for this special episode of the podcast, Cancer Research UK's CEO, Michelle Mitchell, will be interviewing 4 of Deborah's family and friends as they prepare to take on this year's London Marathon. We hope you enjoy the episode.
Hello and welcome to this very special episode of That Cancer Conversation with me, Michelle Mitchell. In 2016, Deborah James, a school teacher at the time, was diagnosed with bowel cancer at the age of 35. Being diagnosed with late-stage cancer so young, she was determined to raise awareness of the signs and symptoms of bowel cancer and the importance of early diagnosis. And she created an incredible social media presence as Bowelbabe. She was a tireless campaigner and fundraiser, sharing her cancer experience with unflinching honesty and challenging taboos around talking about poo. In her final weeks, fueled by her spirit of rebellious hope and passion to help others, Deborah worked with her family to establish the Bowelbabe Fund for Cancer Research UK. This was to support projects that she was passionate about. She quickly captured the heart of the nation with her warmth, her humour, and smashing her fundraising target of £250,000 in a single day. And she was also honoured with a damehood, which Prince William presented to her at her family home. When Deborah died on the 28th of June 2022, the fund had raised nearly £7 million. Joining me today are 4 of Deborah's closest family and friends. We have Ben James, Deborah's brother, and Sarah Wieczorek, Deborah's sister, Emma Campbell, author, speaker and podcast host. She received treatment alongside Deborah and was a firm friend. And we have Steve Bland, an award-winning podcast producer and presenter. He joined the host lineup of the hugely popular You, Me and the Big C podcast alongside Deborah after his first wife, Rachael, passed away from breast cancer in 2018. Thank you all for joining me today. How are you all doing?
Yeah, good, thank you.
How did that intro feel?
I felt a bit of a lump in my throat already, I think, because it's just thinking about how time passes, you know, when you think exactly, 2016.
And it's amazing when you kind of hear the list of achievements that Deborah had, particularly the last few weeks of her life.
I think it's Dame Deborah, isn't it?
Dame Deborah. I think I'll always struggle with that. But it was just amazing. Just amazing to keep hearing that kind of list of achievements is incredible.
Yeah, I thought exactly the same as you. I was like, 2016, that meant when we did that was, like 8 years ago or something. I'm like, quite scary.
Yeah, it was 9 years ago.
And you, Ben, how are you feeling listening to all of that?
Because you obviously hear it a lot of the time, but actually it's like everyone says, it's a long time ago. And actually, when she was diagnosed at 35, I turned 35 this year, so it's quite interesting to see how time disappears quite quickly, actually. But yeah, no, it's good to reminisce at the same time.
Well, it felt like to me, I mean, it brought back so many memories, actually, really precious memories, and it would be good to hear some of those that have perhaps been evoked in listening to the introduction. I joined Cancer Research UK 6 years ago, and Deborah was one of the first people I met. And it was at the Emerald and Ivy Ball, which is supported by Ronan and Storm Keating. And she walked straight up to me and said, "You're not standing properly. Breathe in and put your leg out." And there's this photo of us, and we are in stitches. And ever since then, I stand properly for one. But, she touched my life in many ways, like she touched so many of us.
She certainly made an impression, didn't she? I think, well, for those who knew her, met her for the first time we met her, that first impression, I think, is quite hard to forget. I remember the very first time I met her was for Stand Up to Cancer. the Rebel Mums campaign. We were all dressed in, you know, we had to choose a rebel mum, and there was a lineup, and on the day we had our kids there, and it was a chaotic, mad and Heather, your mum, was there sort of supervising the kids, but it was just, yeah, she made an impression.
And what
very,
was
very
that
quickly.
impression?
I think just as, I mean, she's, in a very obvious way, she was very charismatic. So, and obviously lovely, and a lovely smile, and kind of chatty and engaging. But I remember we sat together and we exchanged story. You know, she shared her story with me, and she'd only recently been diagnosed. I think it was pretty recent when that happened, and it was that kind of, and I, you know, you listen and you hear that story, yeah, she made an impact, I think, on that very first day.
And for you, Steve, what are your first impressions or special memories?
So my first impressions actually were interesting, because I didn't properly meet Deborah until actually after Rachael had died. So Rachael obviously started our BBC podcast after she was diagnosed, and then it'd been going for a year or so. And I met Deborah once, kind of very briefly, and it was right after Rachael died, like maybe the day after, and she phoned me, and there's a number come up on my phone. I didn't have it saved, and she phoned, and obviously we were on the phone for like an hour, because it was quite hard to get Deborah off the phone sometimes.
It was never a 5-minute
Never
call,
a 5-minute
was
call.
it?
But what kind of struck me first of all was how practical she was, in terms of just wanting to help, like wanting to work out, you know, how to help, how to manage the story, you know, in a way, how to kind of, you know, make the most out of the interest that was in the girls at the time, and that was the kind of first impressions. But then, you know, then you spend more time with Deb, and and you know, a lot of the memories that kind of come back are you know, some of the nights out we had, some of the really fun times that we had. We had some. You talk about the ball. You know, she loved the ball, didn't she? Loved an awards do.
Oh, she loved the ball.
One of the first ones we went to was called the Trick Awards, Television and Radio Industry Council or something. It's quite a big deal. I didn't really know that it was quite a big deal. And we were nominated for Podcast of the Year up against that Peter Crouch podcast. And it was just me and Deborah there. The other guys couldn't make it. And we walked in, and it's this amazing room full of all the great and good of TV. We ended up winning, and we were on after Michael McIntyre, before, like, I don't know, somebody else famous. And Deb walked on stage, and I was really nervous because I hadn't really done much of that before. And she spoke for like 5 minutes. You know, nobody was cutting her off. There was no music coming on. You know, she spoke for 5 minutes, all basically just lecturing people on what to look for. Everyone gave her a standing ovation, and afterwards, everybody was just coming up to her, wanting a piece, you know, wanting to get to know her. And she had that amazing magnetism that not that many people have. That in a room full of, you know, what we would consider like, you know, really famous kind of people who've achieved a lot, and, you know, they're all coming up to her, this school teacher who's just been diagnosed with bowel cancer and started a podcast. You know, it was quite extraordinary. So many memories. I could
that
talk for
combination of being an incredibly powerful public speaker, wasn't she? I mean, I'd been at several events with her, and that combination of passion, storytelling, and real knowledge about cancer research, signs, symptoms of cancer, the action you should be taking or could be taking, but the charisma as well.
Yeah.
Magnetism, charisma.
Amazing public speaker. There was, you know, I heard her speak on many occasions. There was one amazing one where she was getting the honorary degree at the first one she got, and
was it at the ICR?
Yeah, and she'd it was in a big cathedral or something, and we'd been invited to, this is awful name drop, Lorraine Kelly's 60th birthday party that afternoon.
As you did.
And she'd had a few wines and a few Prosecco's, and she wrote the speech on the way in the car. And we got there like half an hour late. And your dad was waiting outside.
Late. We might hear a bit of the lateness.
Your dad's waiting outside with a load of people in gowns, and multiples and stuff, like waiting for her, and she just literally walked out of the car, walked in, delivered this knockout speech. Obviously another standing ovation, but yeah, she had quite a talent for that.
You just reminded me of another memory of another photo shoot with Lauren for her one of those Girl vs Cancer t-shirt launches, and Debs was, she'd had her column, didn't she, that she wrote every week in the Sun, and I remember her sitting sort of in a quiet corner and just like tapping onto her phone, and I know that was what she was known for, but sort of kind of winging it, but always just hitting brilliantly, brilliantly.
She had a way that people couldn't say no to. I think because there was one thing, we had these dresses. We were going to the opera, I think, or something. We had these dresses, and she's like, "Oh, we need scarves or something to match." She went in and just said, "Oh, can we have?" Yeah, no problem. And then we realised I didn't have one. She's like, "Oh, just go in and get it. They'll give it to you." I was like, "Trust me, they won't." She's like, "Yeah, they will. I just asked. They gave it to me." She's like, "You can do it. You can do it." I went in and I was like, "No, it's not happening." I was like, "You're going to have to do it." And they just, I don't know. She doesn't say anything different, but the way she says it must be that convincing.
People want to say yes. Way. They wanted to say yes to her, didn't they?
They just say yes.
Extraordinary ability to get it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Have you ever experienced anyone saying no to her?
Probably me.
In her life.
I would say no to her a lot, actually. But do you know, she was very good at not being, because they always say the most successful people have failed a lot as well, haven't they? Like, and would never put her down. She would always think of things as successful, and just keep going. Like, a no was never a no to her, really. There was just another route to go.
That's a real gift if you've got that mindset, isn't it?
Yeah.
And I think maybe that's then ties into how she dealt with her illness and everything that she endured in those years. She had this, and I think I've often talked about the enormous impact she had on me and how I slowly began to deal with my own diagnosis, having been the polar opposite of Deborah on paper in terms of how we dealt with it. And she had such an impact because she had this incredible mindset and and just very briefly, I remember you used the word practical. One of my enduring memories is the day that I got my second recurrence. So it was the third time that I'd been told that, I had cancer. And at that point, they thought it was in my lung. I remember exactly where I was at home, standing in the living room, and I rang her, or I messaged anyway. She rang me straight back. Exactly what you said. The first thing she said was, I was like crying and like, and it's here, and I think they think it's in my lung. And she went, "You've got options, right?" Remember, I can hear her voice, and I was like, "Well, yeah, she went, right." And it was that immediate thing of, right now, that's it. That's all we need, and that was huge
that
for me.
Vision, that kind of end point. She'll have that in her mind. So to some people, you could get told no or not succeed or some negative news on the way, but actually that doesn't get in the way of what the end point is still that she's planning to achieve or get to.
But just look into the next game.
Go to it.
Other than someone like me who's programmed to go from 0 to 1,000 and immediately, kind of be imagining, and it's my own funeral, or
it's what kept her going. She was like, I always have to have hope. You have to have options, hope, and that just drives you forward.
Yeah, but there was that practical.
We got shown around the Christie one time, and shown around the new proton beam centre at the Christie, and the guy showing us around said that's where like the scientists go. That's we don't go in there. No one really goes in there. Those guys don't come out. Don't really see a lot of light. We'll just walk past there, and Deb was like, "Nope, we're going in there." And he's like, no, we can't go in there. And she's like, "Leave it with me." Like 2 minutes later, the door opens and we got shown in because people just couldn't say no to her.
And I think she was very good at, which came from her teaching as well. She never said anything that you didn't really understand. So I think she was just very good at communicating to a level that made sense to people, which I think makes a big difference as well.
If she didn't know, very good at styling it out as well.
Yeah.
Say more.
Yeah, well, no. Just I was saying before we started recording, like she loved to stat, didn't she? She loved data and she loved science and stuff. And if she didn't know something, she would sort of say something roughly right and leave people to check the facts afterwards. And
exactly, and I think that progresses because I'm always like, unless I know for sure it's right, I'm not going to say it. But actually, it does get in the way of you.
It does,
making an impact. So she just go for it.
Absolutely, she just pile in with some good stats, and
she probably believed it herself.
Probably did believe it. Yeah,
it's quite funny listening to kind of her. We call it post cancer and pre cancer. So it's how our memories as kids in early childhood is very similar, but her teaching comes up a lot. And I think my first impressions were obviously, I don't remember them because
you were a boy.
it's,
She was going to chop your finger off. She wanted to- she
Really
wanted to-
annoying older sister.
I was the fortunate surprise that it was a toy for years later. But later on in life, I actually went to a rival school from her. So she was teaching when I was about 14 or 15 at a rival school. I think there's most kids at that age would hate to have a sister teaching at the next door rival school, but for some reason I get invited to all the greatest parties, the local kids, because I was Miss James's brother. And it was quite interesting to see how she was an IT teacher, I think, but for her it was more around teaching people to grow up, get through their exams, whatever it might be. And that kind of passed through to how people know her in the public side of things, I think. But
Shows how much they loved her, though, that you were...
And still today there's a lot of people who remember it. Even when we were going through the stuff and, when the press was a bit more vocal, there was plenty of people who were like, oh, I saw about Miss James. And it's like, okay.
Yeah, the IT teacher thing always it never seemed to quite fit with me. It never was. She used to say I'm a computer scientist, and I'm not sure if that really fitted for me.
There were reasons why that subject was chosen. But then she took it away from the subject, wasn't it, to the kind of...
Well, she was a deputy head.
She was deputy head, so went more the management, kind of the helping... I think different aspects of the management, whether it's behaviour, academics, she enjoyed that. But she was never, for me, she was always the same. It's always been her. I think what people have seen in her cancer journey is still her. I don't think she changed really because of it. She was always... she was like a British gymnast when she was this. She was always really successful. Like, she wanted to achieve things. She had a drive. She was always very, very active, like always doing things. But then also just really normal as well. Like, just like the ability to just have kind of find magic and joy and just really pure moments that were just normal, like she was very good at doing. And I think that's the case kind of throughout her life. So I think it's nice that what we hear is her, regardless of, it's not just because of cancer changed her. Actually, it's her personality, like, through and through.
That was it, lad. One thing I said to people after she died, and everyone kind of saw this dancing and all the stuff on Instagram and things, and that was all great, but like you said, whenever she felt that I was having a tough time, she'd be literally the first person on the phone every single time without fail. And you couldn't shift her off the phone quite often if she's on a steroid or something as well. It was even longer, but she was the first person on the phone. And I think that she did have she knew what got her attention on Instagram. She said to me once, when I do these dancing videos in my underwear, I get loads of attention, so I might just keep doing those.
And what if I dress as a poo as well?
But she knew that was a vehicle to get her the attention to be able to then say, the things she wanted to say. I think she was quite savvy in that way.
But she inspired so many people as well, didn't she? I mean, huge numbers of people. And as her popularity grew and her profile grew, I always felt that her ambition grew as well. And she met that with equal force, so the more popular she became, the higher the profile. She seemed to take it all in her step and got, very savvy, but her real personality shone through all of the time.
I can kind of understand an element of that in terms of, I think when you have heard, when you have been given a diagnosis and you're living in that kind of unknown, fearful state, and particularly in Tex's case, things over a shorter period of time, just challenge after challenge, and things not always going, obviously her way with her health. But I think when you are granted those periods of stability, good health, remission, or that there are these options down the road, I think the energy that you get and it can sound like a cliche, but the determination to kind of wring every moment out of life just becomes a part of who you are. And like from what you're saying, Deborah was clearly always like that. I know I wasn't. And I know that I've become more of a version of that now. because
So she inspired you to
absolutely, because I
live
just
for
see
today, have rebellious hope.
and it might not come naturally, but it's something. And again, with the other in the cancer community that so many of us have become part of, and online, and the ongoing losses. You can't be around so much loss without it really changing the lens at which you look through life. But I can, we're very different personalities, but I can really relate to that hunger. And I guess, talking about things like the marathon, why so many of us say yes a lot more to life, and kind of have that kind of bucket button. Or
Yeah,
I think it helped her as well. Like you were saying, that everyone's different, and I don't think there's a wrong or right way to, deal with. Deborah shouts about it. It doesn't mean it's the right or wrong thing. It's a positive thing, but everyone can deal with it their own way. And there's people that won't, want to keep it private, and that's absolutely fine as well. I think for her, it helped her as well. So it was kind of a two-way thing. Like, she was helping people, but that as it got bigger, the ambition got bigger. But that actually helped her overcome some of the bigger obstacles she had to face as well. And I think she was quite open that it was kind of her way of coping as well.
And everybody has a different way, don't they?
Yeah.
But it felt that the country was supporting, urging her on, and eventually, when we launched the Bowelbabe Fund for Cancer Research UK, demonstrated that by giving such huge amounts of money and support. She inspired people to act in so many ways.
I mean, that just shows you probably didn't quite realise the extent of kind of who she'd reached out to, really.
It plays slightly into her competitive side as well. We talk about kind of ambition, but I think she was always competitive and would always set a bar that we try and beat, whether it's sport or grades or whatever it might be. And I think even down to things like the fund, she'd kind of think about what she really thought it might be, and then she'd try and position it in a way that would make her, challenge herself, but also challenge other people around her to get it done.
It's mad, like, to think the level to which it got to, the interest, the level, because I think I think back to when Rachael had the first idea for our BBC podcast, and she kind of thought of Deborah as, I think her and Deborah met, on Instagram a couple of times, and I think her following was, growing, but it wasn't like 3,000 or 4,000 maybe on Instagram, and she just started the Sun column, I think, not long before. And the notion, like, imagine then thinking that, somebody with cancer kind of as the basis for their profile would get to like 1 million followers and have that level of interest was bonkers.
And you're right, it didn't have, it wasn't ever the first, their initial plan, or you knew that was going to happen from the beginning. You're right, it just organically like grew and grew and grew, and then you're like,
and to this
where we are.
This community now, because it wasn't there back then, was it? You mentioned it before, it just wasn't there then, and
not at all.
In sort of 2016, 2017, and it sort of opened the door for a lot of people to start talking a lot more.
And still now, and I'm sure you do, I'm sure, I know I still get messages from people who might say, oh, I found you via Bowelbabe, and she was, and always, it's always about her, you're great, but, and it's like the love there, the warmth and the kind of affection. And if ever I share anything that references her, the kind of influx of just loveliness and really emotional messages as well. And people, I think she had a reach and an impact that went far beyond cancer.
And that continues, doesn't it, really, to this day? I mean, I reflect, it's been 3 years since the Bowelbabe Fund for Cancer Research was set up. 3 years. Yeah. But I remember the conversation we had. I'd missed a call. Forgive me, I'd got another call immediately, and Deborah and I had spoken about this idea for months, if not a year or two. I said, I've decided it has to be done by Monday. This was about 7:30 on the Friday evening. I was like, thank you, Deborah. I resisted saying, we have been talking about this, and we just got to work.
I'm sure, given the fact that she told you she had to do that, you were like, right, we have to do this then, don't we? Because I think that's that persuasiveness.
It is, and we were all.
I remember coming home on Friday afternoon.
Like, you were making this happen.
It kind of reality hit to an extent coming home on the Friday, but to be honest, we knew it was coming to an extent that we kind of put it aside and just do operations. And I got back on the Friday, and instead of saying, oh, thinking it might be a treacherous tiptoeing around the house, she's like, here's Michelle's number. Yeah, you've got to sort something out by Monday. Yeah. I'm like, oh, right, okay. Yeah. Sorted out. So her thoughts were still about other things rather than the fact that, she'd come home and what have you. So
and super serious about research. I mean, we haven't perhaps touched
Very
on
passionate on that. Yeah.
This was not only ensuring there was more funds for life-saving research into bowel cancer, how to prevent it, how to diagnose it, how to treat it, but also raising awareness of the signs and symptoms of bowel cancer and supporting people to get diagnosis early. But what she did say to me was, do you think it could possibly raise £250,000? I said, I think it might be more, Deborah. But let's see and let's get it set up. And she remained 100% the guiding arm and spirit of it, didn't she? I mean, she was very involved in.
Yeah, and she was very passionate about, like you said, what she wanted it to kind of go towards, how she wanted it to be set up. Like, she had her vision and was quite strong and forceful in making it happen and become what it is.
And as a family, I can imagine, I mean, I think we were all holding you all in our thoughts and our hearts so much at that time, and because there was so much in the press, we could kind of visualise. I remember the picture of Deborah in her bed, and obviously in the garden when Prince William came and stuff. But
I did notice the glass of champagne.
She didn't let anyone else speak as well. She held about loads.
But was it in a way a comfort for you at that time, knowing what was going to happen, but with all of the kind of wonderful craziness and that focus, was that in a way a comfort?
From my perspective, it's obviously a comfort and a distraction from me, but I think maybe a few years down the line, at the time, obviously everything's running wild. You've got, whether it's press or launches of t-shirts, whatever it might be, is amazing, and you see all the kind of support from the country and elsewhere. But I think later down the line, there's almost not a horrible sense of almost guilt. So, the reality is there's hundreds of people dying every day from cancer and other causes. And, a close friend of mine was going through literally the same thing at the same time, and they don't have all this attention and things coming through. And I think part of what she wanted to do was make it better for other people. But you do have that reality of, why us, why her? But she had that feeling too at the same time. But I think she wanted to make the most of that situation to hopefully help other people not go through.
That's kind of what I was saying before, that I think, the perception, she quite liked the attention, a lot of it, I think sometimes, but it was only ever about helping other people, wasn't it? Yeah. It was only ever as a vehicle to help other people. And I think she did that in spades. And
I think on that point, the helping other people, she thought, a big angle of that was making people aware of it, right? And even on the fund and the money side of things, I remember her biggest thing she'd look at on the website was how many people had donated. And actually, one thing I did look today, because I hadn't been on for a long time, is I think it's 330,000, like well in excess of that, have individually donated and sent contributions. And I think that's the number that really hit her, because she's like, oh, that many people have done this, or people have
knew exactly how many people were looking at every story on Instagram, didn't she?
I remember some piece of data that came in from the number of searches on bowel cancer, and that's the kind of thing that she really liked. Rather, the money was great as well, but it's
she valued, didn't she? Somebody donating £1
as much. Yeah.
Or there was a few donations which were much bigger than £1. It didn't matter the amount, and the fund has gone on to be such a huge success. And there's many projects being funded now covering all aspects of tackling bowel cancer. These range from investigating how gut bacteria impacts or risk of the disease, and looking at how artificial intelligence could spot its earliest signs.
She'd love that,
wouldn't she? Combining with the IT teacher in her, all the way to addressing the global rise of bowel cancer in the under 50s, which we're seeing now, and funding state-of-the-art treatment at the Royal Marsden Hospital, where Deborah was treated. So really spot-on programmes and research projects with her passion for personalised bowel cancer medicine at the heart of it. And I was wondering really, Ben and Sarah, could you tell us a bit about how the Bowelbabe Fund works? And you and the family make really important decisions on where that money's spent. I've just mentioned a few programmes. We've got 10 incredible projects now have been funded in the last 2 years. What interests you in a project, and what have you got in your mind when you're picking one from the fund?
I think, you asked it. I think from my perspective, I think number one is we want to, make sure we're supporting and backing projects or teams or equipment that frankly Deborah would have wanted to do, and that's always hard to know because she's picky. But that's number one. And I think at the same time we want to make sure that 330,000 people that we just mentioned, we're supporting things that the community that she built, the supporters think this money should go to. And it's always a balancing act between, well, what we've learned from yourselves is it's a balancing act between trying to show real tangible impact really quickly, which is obviously useful, but making sure that actually some of this vital research and some of these projects that might take years and years to come to fruition are funded, because that's where some of the biggest changes could come from. So it's super interesting, and I think there's always little snippets that you see from Deborah that she hasn't made it easy for us or you from a operational perspective, and it's really exciting to see how her vision coming to life is difficult to put in reality, and actually having the likes of Cancer Research UK helping guide and kind of put forward some of the best projects in the world.
And they're all independently peer reviewed, aren't they? So we know they're top quality.
It's definitely not us deciding in the sense of we can't opine on the scientific side of things, but with the guidance and the kind of vision, we get to get a sense of.
Do you feel the hand of Deborah in those funding meetings saying this programme, that programme?
Yeah, and I think because she did set out her kind of vision of where she wanted the fund to kind of have its impact, whether it was like innovation, personalised medicine, like the taboo around bowel cancer in general. I think we've also made sure we're covering all angles. So it's not just research, it's not just immunotherapy, it's not just a new piece of machinery or something. It's kind of spreading it across that band. And I guess we look for projects that kind of are innovative, are going to have impact. So Deborah was about action, not just talking. So something that's going to hopefully kind of help both now and in the future. Though I think that was Deborah's biggest passion, is kind of to make the biggest impact for the most people.
So it's been great, hasn't it, on the early diagnosis that you've also chosen to fund Bowel Cancer UK with a focus on early diagnosis and raising awareness, and great, new equipment for the Marsden.
Yeah.
Both of whom were important charities in her life.
Yeah, and that was really good to see because like you were saying, a lot of it is funding research. Like we funded a couple of fellows, I think at the Royal Marsden. We've got a laboratory at the Francis Crick Institute, and then some projects on early onset of bowel cancer. There's some projects looking at immunotherapy and stem cells. So there's all this research going on that it's hard to actually show people the results of that. There's nothing physical. So I think, was it last month, whenever we went to see the interventional radiology machine at the Royal Marsden, which the Bowelbabe Fund funded the machinery as well as the room that it goes in. I think they had to build a new floor. It's so heavy, but it's state of the art, first in the UK of its kind, and that was really good to actually see it. And that's one strand of where she wanted the funding to go. And like you said, it was really nice. It was at the Royal Marsden where she was treated herself, but it's also somewhere that will give access to hopefully as many people as can that can use that machine. It's there to kind of increase research as well. It will hopefully mean less people need to have invasive surgery and they can do procedures via that. So multiple uses. But yeah, that was nice to see. I kind of wanted to lie. I went in. I had to put the lead jackets and skirts on, which were really heavy because of the radiation. But I wanted to just go in and be like, can you just scan my body, see what's there? Like, give me an all-in-one.
It's absolutely amazing what you guys have done, because I think that, you know, you talk about the it being a distraction maybe in the weeks and months after Deborah died, or around that kind of time, but then in the 2.5 years after that, you know, it's a lot of graft to do what you guys have done, isn't it? And it's not easy to keep doing this and to keep, but I think the passion that she had, you guys have been unbelievably good at carrying on and making sure that there is, you know, an extraordinary legacy, because like you say, a lot of these projects won't come to fruition in the next year. It might be 10, 20 years down the line, but we're going to see benefit from them. And I think every single one that you've backed and supported, I mean, her hand's all over that. She'd love it, every single one. And whenever I read something, you're like, yeah, that makes sense. I think it's just extraordinary. It's a real tribute to you guys that you've. And
you feel quite
sick. Heather as well.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think it was I want to say it was part of Deborah's plan to have something to keep mum and dad so busy. That they did.
Your mum was busy enough. But...
Well, she is so busy. She's like a Deborah. She has to be so busy. But I think that was kind of Deborah's plan, to keep everyone so busy. There's a limit to how upset you can be, because you just have to keep things going for her. So I think
it's not easy though. That's a lot of work that goes into that, and I think, like I said, it is amazing what you guys do.
It's a lot of work with CR UK. I mean, that they support us a lot and help, and that makes it doable.
It definitely goes to the point of when you're mentioning she wants to get straight into the data or the scientist. I think her other big thing is you can't just rely on yourself to know what's best for everyone. It's relying on the best in the industry, and you know, she's got relationships with all the great charities in the UK and abroad. And I think, as well as some of the tangible equipment, you know, there's some of the projects that cancer research have brought to us where, you know, there's teams of people around the globe working on bowel cancer, which is amazing. And, you know, that's the other side to her, where it's let the best people in the world come together and bash their minds and see.
Because she probably pestered them at some point over something. Exactly. She probably got onto them saying, I need that treatment. You know, how can I get it? Exactly. She was an amazing advocate for her own treatment, wasn't she? And
yeah, because what is it, Team Prospect or something? Is that a glow? I want to say, is that glow?
Yes, it's on the Cancer Grand Challenge.
Grand Challenge, which I think she'd really like, because that's what you said. It's not just in the UK as well. It's bringing all, you know, that wider knowledge together, which is where we're going to make the biggest difference and impact as well.
Because one of the big questions in cancer research at the moment is, why has there been an increase in the rates of younger people, those under 50, getting bowel cancer right across the world, but particularly in 19 countries, and we don't know why. We've got lots of reasons why it might be, but I think you've met the team, haven't you?
Yes, and that's the Team Prospect are looking into that, the early onset, aren't they? It's like below 50, I believe. Yeah.
And one of the things that was always very important to Deborah, I found, was how important it was to be transparent, to say, you know, where the money's going to, thanking supporters. And I think we're determined, aren't we, to be open and transparent, show exactly where the Bowelbabe Fund money goes to and what results will happen, and engage that community of millions of people who still want to follow this story.
Exactly. Yeah, it's all on the Bowelbabe org, isn't it? Like, you can see a summary of all the kind of the projects that we've funded to date, and kind of then you can go into more detail of actually what each one is researching. Or
but Deborah also helped, didn't she, really break some taboos about cancer, and record numbers of people went for their bowel cancer checks following numerous interventions. Has this given you confidence to talk about some taboo subjects, or subjects that were traditionally seen as being taboo?
I think so. I think the conversations around all cancers are many are changing in a positive way, and I think maybe largely due to the sort of community in the online space and the intimate conversations that maybe wouldn't have occurred, 5-10 years ago, and the fact that so many share so openly, and even if you're not someone who wants to share so openly, you can observe and gain so much from observing, and I think I think so many of us feel passionate about those conversations and normalising it, and actually also, and just talking about every aspect, you know, the physical, the symptoms, the importance of early detection, but also the mental and emotional aspects, and
for many, the financial
Yeah.
aspects of it.
Yeah.
It affects your whole life,
Everything.
doesn't it?
Everything. And there are so many phases to it, you know, and different sort of chapters, however long you're, you know, whether you've had one diagnosis and physically moved on and are well, or whether you have, and I think that's another thing, realizing that it's that word that everybody is terrified of, but that word is an umbrella, and there is it's everybody's story is different.
Yeah, and everybody's cancer.
Everybody's cancer is different, and that's something that took me a long time to realise. And there's just such a loyalty and a connection between so many of us, and a support. And it's painful to watch each other's stories unfold. And sometimes I think it's important that we know when to step back. But she certainly was at the forefront of.
I don't think there was any stepping back.
No.
For
There's
Deborah.
no stepping back.
No.
Yeah.
I think I don't, like, has it changed the way I talk about taboo subjects? Probably without realising, yes, like you're a bit more open. But I wonder if it's changed how people talk to me about it as well. Like, I don't know if it makes me more open. Like, I was literally last weekend on the side of a hockey pitch watching my daughter play, and a friend came over and said, "I've just received my bowel screening test," and she goes, "What she received a couple of weeks ago," and she's like, "Oh, you know, put the sample. I had to carry it to work. It was great, really easy. Posted it off, and it's all come back all fine." But it was just such a normal conversation, which, you know, I really like having. And I don't know, have I changed the way I do, or has it just made me more approachable? But either way,
I'd say
I've definitely changed the way that I talk about these things. I think, I don't know if you think the same, Ben, but I think, you know, maybe as guys we're not as open to talking, you know, so honestly about some of these topics. And I think I can remember when Rachael was writing her book before she died, and I was proofreading some of the chapters for her, and she got to the chapter where it started to, where she was detailing about how it like started to go wrong, and I remember reading it, I was like, "Oh, are you sure you want to be sharing this?" And she's like, "Well, no, if I'm going to share it, I'm going to share it all." And I at the time wasn't really that comfortable talking about those topics.
Did you feel because it was private, or
it was very easy to share when things actually, you know, it wasn't when she was writing the book, it was before that. It was when she was blogging, before even the podcast. It was the first blog about things going wrong, and it was really easy to tell your story when things were going right. You've been diagnosed with cancer and you're having the first treatment. I'm really positive, and the chemo's going to go to here, and it's working, and it's going really well, and great story. You know, it was a hard time, but, you know, quite positive at the time. And it started to go a little bit wrong. The first scan kind of showed it wasn't working, and I was like, I don't want to share this, because this is our stuff, this is private. And that's when Rachael said, "Well, if we're going to share it, I'm going to share it all." And I think that was the first time for me that I actually, you know, sort of adjusted the way I thought about these things.
And how did that make you feel?
It was really difficult at the time, because I didn't really want everyone to sort of know that it wasn't going well. But then when you do tell the stories, and then you realise there's loads of other people going through the same thing, this whole community kind of rallies around each other, and little by little you realise that actually talking about these things, you know, while it doesn't help cure cancer, it makes the whole situation so much more manageable, I think.
And with your podcast, you took, you mean the Big C, you took that spirit into that then when you followed Rachael.
It was funny because I never intended to do it, and then I did one with the girls.
Did Deborah?
Just one.
Well, you know, they kept joking that I was on probation for about a year, and yeah, I never intended to. And then I did one with the girls about 3 months after Rachael died, and I didn't really know them that well at the time, and I think they were thinking the podcast kind of might die a death, and weren't really sure what to do with it, and we just had a really, really, really good time. And I was on there to talk about my wife who just died, and I got absolutely roasted for an hour. I just got the mick taken out of me, and it was just a really good laugh, and we all got on really well.
And how many bleeps did you have to ditch out?
The bleep button was used a lot, but and then the controller of 5 Live phoned me, and he said, how do you fancy joining them? I was like, well, I'd love to, but it's got to be their decision, because it's not mine, it's theirs. It's theirs to decide what to do with. I kind of dropped enough hints, and eventually they were like, do you fancy it? And then, yeah, got involved. But it was honestly the best thing I ever did, because I think this is only 4 or 5 months after Rachel died, and
Therapy.
as you said,
Such a hard time.
but as you said, it helped Deborah kind of figure out her own, a lot of her own challenges by talking. And for me, that was like my therapy, talking to the girls.
I think also what you did on the podcast, but also what Deborah liked was realizing it's okay to also have fun or have a good time whilst you're going through a bad time.
Yeah.
And you reminded me, they quite liked kind of, we talk about cancer and the taboos. It's also death and the taboos about that, which I think we've just been thrown into it and realised that I talk about those last few weeks quite openly with people, forgetting that a lot of people don't talk about that. And even to the point where Deborah brought us a couple of gifts before she passed away. And, in mine, it said, she actually didn't know I was getting married or engaged at the time, but it just said, this is half of your wedding present, you knob. It's, she kind of just does things that, we'll joke around because it has to be done. But, it's good to change the direction of it's okay to have a good time. It's about.
And I think the talking for her was also about the kind of raising awareness of the signs and the symptoms, and to allow people that breaking down the taboo, but to know in hope that maybe actually if they notice something that they're aware of, it gives them that avenue to have that conversation and hopefully kind of pick something up before it's kind of too late as well, to give people that opportunity to have that early conversation. So I think in a not light-hearted, but yeah, just those conversations would also
light-hearted. As Ben said, that when Rachel died, I was looking at her phone and I found all these messages between Deborah and Rachel joking about getting 2 for 1 of their funerals.
Wasn't there like Grim Reaper
gifts and stuff? And some of the conversation, like, you look at it, that's really quite
dark.
But it's a kind of conversation that people weren't having, and they kind of brought that into more everyday life.
Humour that
even more
the dark humour that was really important.
I don't think we'd ever imagined, like, looking more externally. I still go, I think I'm right in saying, we've had Leicester Square, the main board with the Bowelbabe Fund. We've had motorway stations with kind of check your poo everywhere, and you would never have thought that these kind of places would be quite so. Or toilet rolls and
blue rolls everywhere, supermarkets.
It's quite the narrative has changed. Even if you pop into your local GP, there's definitely, whether it's actually bowel cancer or cancer, there's just connotations and wording that have definitely changed. And whether it's Deborah or others, I think it's good to see.
She certainly led the charge.
And I think it's the being serious about wanting people to know the signs and symptoms, and kind of, but again, like communicating in a way that actually people understand it and it makes sense. Yeah. Adding a serious but adding a fun aspect to it, like relatable.
I'm looking down and I can see.
I was going to say,
I can see a number of trainers being.
Trainers! I was going to say this. I don't have my trainers on now.
Tell me, why are trainers important to you gang at the moment?
Well, it just so happens
that you are about to.
Nearly 3 years after she died, she's still persuading us to do daft stuff, isn't it?
Run the London Marathon.
Yeah, run the London Marathon. Yeah, it's definitely her doing. You're right.
So you're all running London Marathon.
When the Bowelbabe Fund got in touch, I was like, well, yeah, sure. Yeah, no, I have to do that. So, of course.
So what made you decide then?
Might be slightly on me, to be fair.
It continues. You're going to be running the London Marathon for the Bowelbabe Fund. Yeah. Was it you, Ben?
I hinted a fair while ago that I was itching to maybe run another marathon, and it's not just us. There's a whole team running it for the fund, which is great. And I think I've always had an itch to run a couple more, or one more at least, having done a few. And
you're only 35. You've got plenty of life left.
I can hang my shoes up whenever, but I think it's a good time to do it. London Marathon's great. I went last year, and I think Deborah loved it. She often watched it most years, actually. I remember she used to hand out the water bottles with you 15 years ago or whenever it was.
Our best ever podcast was when the girls came to watch and followed you around the route and then met me on the finish line and stuff. It was magic.
So yeah, we've got a team running, which will be fun.
So
is it fun?
Running, yes. Marathon distance, no. Makes me want to cry.
It's really far, isn't it?
So Debs and I would do running kind of for fun, especially the COVID years where actually that was one of the only things you could do. But with the children, we would do like 5Ks.
Well, she loved race. Well, you've all
race
for life.
Exactly. Like you're kind of your race for life. Some 5Ks, some 10Ks. Like I think there was. I'm trying to think. There was a. No, it was either a 10K or a half. No, I think it was a 10K where I kind of pushed her through it, and I think she ended up with her fractured leg.
We had an awards do that a week after, and she had to hobble up on crutches to get the award.
Yeah, so that's where that is when I do say no to her. She was like, "We need to walk, Sarah." I was like, "No, we're not walking. We're nearly there. It's like 2K left." Kind of probably resulted in me giving her a broken leg, but she's a type. So I feel like the marathon distance makes me want to cry, but actually, I feel like my body is now or never. I feel like it's a great way to keep her spirit alive. Actually, it's something I like to do with her running, and it's a challenge. I want to challenge myself. She faced so much with such such determination and grace. It's like if she could do so much with all the challenges she had, the least I could do is try and.
I shall be looking for a graceful Sarah at mile 21. I'll cheer you on graceful.
There. So my plan is to wear this. Well, no, it's not to wear this. It's to incorporate this.
This is the poo costume.
This is the poo costume. So it's what Deborah. It's not her one because her one is. We're keeping that safe, aren't we? I think it's.
You wouldn't want to be fit on that one.
Well, this one. I think it was the same. I do need to get it out and see if it's the same size. I think it's the same size. I'll just make sure it's up around my bum.
Are you all wearing the poo costume?
Well, that's what I'm going to. You're up for it, aren't you? So we just need to cut some holes because I think we will suffocate.
Need a bigger one than that.
We'll see how much gets raised.
I think you can try this on. I think we'll do it. But because it's about raising awareness as well, isn't it? So I'm thinking if we can get as many of us running looking like poos, even for just part of it.
Is it your first time?
It's my first time. Yes, we did like. I think I did it with you and Deborah, didn't I? In lockdown, we did like a virtual marathon.
Well, to me, I took that very seriously.
That was a London Marathon.
That was the London Marathon, and it was the 40th London Marathon.
Yeah, but
I did mine on my own, running around.
Major.
I feel like this is my first event where it's there with everyone running at the same time. You've got the atmosphere. You can have the biggest impact.
Atmosphere is amazing.
All the
people
people
cheering you on, won't they?
It's just the best event. I did that virtual one actually with about a week's notice because she said she was doing it.
Yeah.
I was like, well, oh crap. Well, if she's going to do it, I'm going to have to do it as well, aren't I? And I was actually on the phone with Deb and Emma for like an hour while we were running around. Yeah.
And it was the most extraordinary
It was great.
day ever.
But it is the best event, and you'll absolutely love it. I've been lucky enough to do it a few times, and it's just like the crowds just get you round, and it's just the most amazing thing.
And when they see the poo costumes and the Bowelbabe Fund,
they'll love it.
They'll love it.
They'll live it. Yeah, we'll get so much support doing it, and I think that really does. When it gets really hard around 18, 19 miles, and that's when your calves start going and everything starts
Vaseline
hurting.
comes out.
The tiger balm or something, like keep you going.
You need a good lie down, don't you? But that's when the people and the crowds like really get you going, and it's just the most amazing thing. She didn't ever do London, didn't she? I don't think
she did the virtual, and we always floated the idea of doing one the last
she really wanted
5 years, but because of treatments or
she had a place in the next
year. Yeah, it'd be something she would absolutely love to do.
We even joked about pushing around in the wheelchair, I think, in 2018. But no, it's something she wanted to do. She ran some other ones elsewhere, but London's always been.
Well, one of the things to prepare yourselves for is with the poo outfit and the Bowelbabe Fund vests on. You'll probably find people talk to you when you're running.
Yeah.
And they'll share their cancer experience. They'll share their experience of Deborah as well. And you'll be hearing from the sidelines all the goodwill and cheers and hopefully great fundraising as well.
Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
I think we've all got the same vision for it, and just to raise as much as we can.
And the times don't matter apart from for Ben. The times matter a little bit
Definitely
for Ben.
not. I having done it 6 years ago now, it didn't quite go to plan when I last did the marathon. So this one's about finishing, I think, just to get over the line.
You're absolutely right, though. It will be such a really stark reminder of the impact Deb made, though, because you'll get. I did it the year after Rachael died, and I remember coming down the last corner. We got onto the mall, and someone shouted, "Rachel will be really proud of you."
Oh, wow.
I'm flipping out.
That set you
I
off.
ran the last half mile just like
Crying.
sobbing my eyes out because for someone to say that, just you don't really recognise the impact people have.
And someone you don't know.
Someone I didn't
said
even
it.
know, had no idea who they were,
Yeah.
and I've no doubt we'll get that.
And that's what, because you can be drawn into that whole, like, what time are you going to get this, your training time, and then you have to remind yourself, that's not why I'm doing it. And it's for, like, yes, I need to complete it, but actually, how can we raise awareness while we're doing it? How can we raise funds to keep all this vital research, ongoing work going like that? It's just remembering that, isn't it?
And we'd love
having
our
fun
listeners-
while we do
You
it.
definitely will have fun. I promise you. I promise you, you'll have fun. Maybe not
Immediately during it, maybe after.
immediately after it, or the next day, but a couple of days later, you'll realise.
The bath that you have that night, nothing
the
like.
next week,
Well, they
in
get
my
no-
case.
The day after, your legs really hurt.
Oh, they do.
Have you done the
I
London?
have. And I had a great run. Given my fitness level, I'd started on Boxing Day, 2014, I think this was. So had not run before, but I didn't take the necessary precautions after I had run and was too busy chatting. And my husband left my recovery drink in Pizza Express, and my legs locked the next day. So I strongly encourage you to take the precautions you need. Although I do remember being sort of half a mile, and the half a mile down the mile is a long run, isn't it? You're ready to stop there.
You see the finishing line, can't you? But it looks so far away.
Imagine that, yeah. And I bumped into my son, was cheering me on, and I was extremely proud of myself, I have to say. And he said, "Oh, we've been waiting hours. The first people finished 2.5 hours ago." Yes, they are Olympian.
That's what Deb said to me when I
Runners.
finished, and they were on the finish line. Said, "We were tracking you. We thought you died. You weren't moving."
Yeah,
All right.
just needing a bit of a rest. And you'd encourage our listeners to support you. I certainly would in your fundraising endeavours.
Yes.
And the great work of Deborah and the Bowelbabe Fund continues.
I've already had quite a few lovely donations on my page, which is, I think I got the first one 2-3 months ago, which is, autumn 2024, and they were coming in. So
It really helps with all the kind of the momentum.
It really
Doing things like this makes it real as well.
Yeah,
And,
yeah.
I think I'm quite excited.
Some people actually put their
Yeah.
money behind you.
It's nice to see some of the other
Have to do it.
team members and hear some of their stories.
And how many in the team?
I wish I knew. I think it's around 15, at least 15 of us, if I'm not mistaken. And obviously there's more from Cancer Research UK as well.
Yeah.
And
And then
it's super exciting.
other people that have, say, already got places but not running for a
Yeah.
charity, we could hopefully kind of recruit more people along the way.
Yeah, doing this.
Yeah. Get
Get
the
bigger.
Bowelbabe momentum going.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Thanks so much, everyone. Thank you for joining me as our
you.
guest today. Have you enjoyed it?
Loved it.
Been lovely.
Loved it.
Has
I'm
it been nice
excited
to
now.
tell those stories?
Yeah, it's been really nice to kind of remember. Scary how long it's been. Reflect and
and to see each other, and
then now we can't back out of the marathon.
it's happening.
You told everyone you're doing the marathon, haven't you? Oh, that's wonderful. And if you want to listen to more episodes, you can now find them all on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. And to stay updated for new episodes, you can subscribe on all platforms. Thanks ever so much for listening.